If you're watching this video, you're probably considering moving to the northeastern Florida area, maybe even St. Augustine being the primary area that you're looking to relocate to. And you're probably moving from South Florida, Miami, Broward County, somewhere around that area, and looking for a different lifestyle and maybe a much cheaper lifestyle. What's up everyone, it's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida. And if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida, we're talking about Jacksonville, Palm Coast, St. Augustine, the entire northeastern Florida area, I cover. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in the area. So today's video is geared mostly towards the #1 population of people moving to northeastern Florida, which is going to be South Florida. We're talking about Miami-Dade County, we're talking about Broward County, we're talking about Palm Beach County. That makes up the majority of South Florida. And what we're going to do is cover a whole bunch of different things. So the main points that I want to cover in this video are going to be, why are people leaving South Florida in the first place? We're also going to take a look at what St. Augustine offers that South Florida doesn't offer. Then we're also going to do a housing comparison. And then we're also going to take a look at some of the main concerns that you might have if you're considering leaving South Florida. So the first thing that we're going to cover is why people are leaving South Florida. And we're going to cover a whole bunch of different things. Some of the reasons you may be leaving are going to be subjective to you, but we're going to cover the big rocks of why people are moving South Florida. One of the biggest reasons that people are leaving is because of the cost of living in South Florida. It's no secret that the cost of car insurance, homeowners insurance has gone up over the past couple of years, especially when you're talking about flood insurance as well. The cost of housing also much more expensive than it has been in the past, but Miami has always been more expensive than the rest of the state of Florida. So pretty much anywhere you go in the state of Florida, you're going to win in that respect. And then also just your general cost of living, going out to eat, going out to grab a cup of coffee or going to get groceries, just going to be much more expensive in a more densely populated area than it would be here in northeastern Florida. And that's probably the biggest reason that people are looking to relocate from South Florida, especially, and I've been talking to a lot of people that are my age that are looking to relocate from that area, is because they can't get their foot in the door to start with the basic goal of homeownership, because the bar is set so high in South Florida than it is comparatively up here in northeastern Florida that they're moving to not necessarily greener pastures, but much cheaper pastures than what you have in South Florida. And I mean, it's no secret, everyone knows, like I said before, that Miami is much more expensive. So there's going to be a little bit of a trade-off when you're talking about what you get here versus what you get there in terms of the housing costs, but also in terms of your lifestyle as well. The next reason we're going to talk about is going to be overcrowding and traffic and congestion. Now, if you've ever driven through 95 in South Florida, you know that it's a complete mess. Probably one of the worst choke points of traffic within the entire United States. I mean, at least that's how I felt when I've driven through there. And I've driven through some of the other worst parts of Florida as well. I lived in New York for a long time, dealt with the traffic there. I drive north and south between New York and Florida, Pennsylvania and Florida a whole bunch of times. So I've gotten caught in that terrible stretch between Baltimore, Richmond, and DC. Awful traffic in that area. I've also been to Orlando several times. Terrible traffic on I-4. So I have a good filter on what good traffic and bad traffic is, and all traffic's technically bad traffic, right? But Miami definitely has some of the worst traffic, and that's because it's an attractive place to live. There are a ton of people and a ton of wealth that lives in Miami, and they want to have the access to the amenities that Miami offers to people. But I think as Florida has changed, I also think Miami has changed aggressively over these past couple of years, to where the people that have lived there, moved there several years ago, it's just not as attractive anymore as it once was. Their lifestyles have changed. What they want is going to be a little bit different, which is why Miami and South Florida in general is the #1 relocator to our area. Most people would think, oh, it's New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California. No, the #1 person moving to northeastern Florida is going to be people from South Florida and Miami in specific. Now, the next big reason that people are leaving Miami is going to be hurricanes. In general, South Florida just gets hit a lot more with hurricanes than North Florida. I have a map here. If you look at the past 124 years of hurricanes making landfall, you look at South Florida and you can see that it's pretty bad. It's getting hit a whole bunch with hurricanes. They're also getting hit with a lot higher of a wind speed of hurricane, a much more severe Category 3, Category 4, Category 5 hurricane. Then when you look at northeastern Florida, we just don't have that, right? We've only been hit in St. Johns County here 4 times direct landfall within the past 124 years. Now, of course, we've been, within the cone or in the outer bands of the hurricane. So we have gotten effects from things that haven't hit landfall directly here in St. Johns County. But in general, when you're looking at St. Johns County versus Miami-Dade County, we're getting hit with a lot lower of a wind speed, which is actually a difference. If you come up north, everything here for the most part is built with wood. It's frame building. If you go down south, everything down there is going to be concrete block. You're going to have hurricane impact windows, and that's because the building code requires it down there because of how frequent they get hit with hurricanes and the average wind speed that they sustain. Here in northeastern Florida, we don't have that same problem. Knock on some wood here, right? Got to make sure I'm going to not jinx myself here in the future, but historically, if you look at the past 124 years, we just haven't gotten hit with as many hurricanes and not as severe of hurricanes as they have in South Florida or the Panhandle in the state of Florida. And the other big reason that people are leaving South Florida is going to be just for a lifestyle change. Like I said, over the past couple of years, things have changed drastically in the entire state of Florida, whether you're talking about the population or pricing, and Miami is no different, right? And northeastern Florida is no different, which is why we have so many people relocating to our areas, because they're looking for a change of pace. They want a completely different lifestyle than they had in Miami, and that's what northeastern Florida, especially St. Augustine, has to offer. If you're looking for like a small town, you're looking for local businesses, you're looking to not be in the hustle and bustle of what Miami has to offer, St. Augustine is a super attractive option in that respect. So let's go on to our next point, which is, what does St. Augustine have to offer that makes it so attractive to people leaving South Florida? And then there's a number of reasons for this, but I'm going to cover, once again, the big rocks of why people are moving to our area. The first thing is going to be the historic charm and culture. Now, Miami has its own charm, has its own culture there, of course, but downtown St. Augustine, the historic area, is a lot different than what you're going to find in the metropolitan area of Miami and South Florida. It's just completely different. It is. And when you come down here to St. Augustine, you get the architecture, you get the history, you get the small town feel that a lot of people are looking for. And many locals will argue with me here that our small town is not a small town anymore because of how drastically it's changed over these past couple of years. But I personally still feel, and of course, I'm a realtor, I'm biased, right? I still feel that St. Augustine does offer that small town feel. Every time I go out downtown or I'm out around the town doing some errands, I'm more than likely am going to run into someone that I know here in the area. And I think that's something that I myself really like, maybe because I'm like the digital mayor of St. Augustine. That's kind of why I run into so many people that I know. But I love that. I love knowing who owns the restaurants down the corner. I love knowing and seeing friends that I've known since elementary school here in town and just bumping into them. And that's not for everyone, right? But if you're relocating to a new area, you can make friends and maybe you run into people that you actually enjoy running into. But between the architecture, the history, all the entertainment that we have here with live music, art venues, farmers markets, we also have the beautiful amphitheater here in St. Augustine. There's always something to do, but it's just not at that fast pace that Miami has to offer. If I were to compare it, in terms of a car, St. Augustine compared to Miami, it's going to be like first or second gear, right? Miami's going to be fifth or sixth gear, depending on what kind of car you have, but it's going to be at the very top there. It's a metropolitan area. I think it's the 9th largest metropolitan area in the entire United States. It's the largest metropolitan area here in Florida. So the lifestyle is going to differ, and it's only going to be for specific people that are looking for that change, that slow down in lifestyle coming up here to northeastern Florida. Now, we talked about the historic charm, but we are also a coastal town, right? So aside from having like the beautiful downtown and the history and the old buildings down there, we also have a great coastal town where you have a whole bunch of shops, restaurants that run along A1A just as they would in South Florida. They run along A1A, but they're going to be small local vendors. They're not going to be these big box retailers that you're going to see everywhere. Is that changing? Do we see more big box retailers coming in? Of course, we got a Walmart, we got a Target, we got those kind of places, but we still have small business here as well. We have farmers markets, we have all that kind of cool stuff that really makes the town feel more like a tight-knit community. And I really believe that, especially if you're comparing it to Miami, we're going to win out all day long in that sense. Now, the one difference I will say is we have beautiful beaches here. We have a ton of room to spread out. You can drive on the beaches here. I'm not familiar if you can drive on the beaches in Miami. I don't think you can. But the one thing I will say is that it's not nearly as congested. It's not nearly as crowded as what you're going to find in Miami Beach. It's just not, right? There's just not as many people here. So there's a lot more enjoying of the nature, having more space to spread out. You don't have your neighbor right next to you blasting a boombox in your face while you're trying to enjoy the beach, hearing the seagulls and the crashing of the waves. It's just you have a lot more space here in St. Johns County than you do in South Florida. And I think that's a big difference of, especially when you're just trying to have a relaxing beach day, it's going to be completely different lifestyle wise here. And talking about congestion, just in general, now, once again, locals will fight me on this. You know, they'll say, oh, 20 years ago, you get around so easy. Now it's not the same. I've dealt with real traffic. The traffic here is fine. There's no big problem. Are there areas that you need to avoid and need to know, you know, oh, hey, this is a choke point of traffic? 100%. That is no different in pretty much anywhere else in the country. But in general, the traffic here is fine. So when you're comparing that to South Florida, which consists of Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County, I mean, the population there is like 6.18 million, and that's probably from a 2020 census. So I imagine it's grown pretty significantly since then. It's probably closer around 6.5 to 7 million people at this point. So when you're talking about traffic congestion and just being elbow to elbow with people, it's way different here, right? We just don't have as many people that live in the northeastern Florida area, which makes it a lot more attractive for that reason. The next thing that St. Augustine in general, St. Johns County offers versus South Florida that I think is one of the bigger things, and talking about more about costs here, and we're going to talk more about housing later in this video, but just taxes in general, right? If you're looking at your taxes in South Florida, from what I could find on their property tax estimator, most of them are going to be somewhere between 1.8 and 2% of your purchase price when you're talking about buying a property, right? So if you're buying $1 million house, let's say it's 2% for easy math, your taxes are roughly going to be $20,000. And there are places here in St. Johns County where you can find a higher tax base, where the millage rate for that certain area is going to be around 1.8%, almost 2% in some areas. But there's also a ton of other areas that the taxes are much lower. For example, in my area, taxes are 1.26% of your purchase price. So if you're buying that same $1 million house, your taxes are going to be $12,600, roughly around there, right? So you can find the expensive areas. That's more than likely going to be St. Augustine Beach. That's going to be downtown St. Augustine. Those are going to have a higher tax limit, and it's going to be the highest in St. Johns County. But when you're looking at the rest of the county, the taxes are much cheaper. Let's take a quick look at an example of that. So what I did is I went on to the St. Johns County Property Appraiser, where they have a property tax estimator. And what I did is you can select from the drop-down menu of tax district where the millage rate is, and I selected the city of St. Augustine because that is one of the higher tax rates in our area. I put in a just market value of $1 million, and then I computed it to estimate the taxes, which comes out roughly on an annual basis to $18,720. Now, when you take a look at the Miami-Dade County, once again, I'm not from Miami. I don't know what's the cheapest, most expensive, but I just picked a couple of them just so I could see, you know, I picked 5 or 6 just so I could see, okay, am I crazy? Is this too expensive? Is that? And from what I'm finding is that pretty much the floor is around 18.7% or 18.7 millage rate, right? So if you're buying a property, it's going to be roughly 1.8% of your purchase price. So what I did is I went in and I just went to, we're just going to do the basic stuff, right? We want to take a look at what a $1 million house is going to look like in Miami-Dade County. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at just Miami, right? And I'm just going to choose that off their tax estimator and estimate property taxes based off of that. The millage rate for Miami is 2.003, right? So that's a millage rate of 20 per 1,000 essentially. So that same $1 million property, your taxes are going to be $20,033. So roughly a $2,000 savings year over year. Now, the interesting thing is this is pretty much where the floor is, right? Is around 2% of your purchase price. So what I want to do is go into St. Johns County and take a look at a different millage rate, just so you get a good idea of the difference of how much your taxes could save you here in St. Johns County. And when you take a look at City of St. Augustine Beach, this is one of the higher places of taxes in our area. The millage rate is 15.19. So on a $1 million property, if you're in City of St. Augustine Beach, that's going to come up to $15,190. So that same $1 million property, it's going to save you $5,000 a year just to live in this area versus there. Now let's take a look at another area here in St. Augustine, which is Volano Beach, which a lot of the architecture in Volano Beach is, they almost look very similar to Miami. So when we take, it's much smaller. Don't say it's not the same. It's much smaller, but some of the architecture there does kind of give you that Miami feel. So when you take a look at Volano Beach, That's 12.6, right? 12.633 for that $1 million property. That's going to bring your taxes down to $12,633. So when you're comparing it to Miami, you're at an $8,000, $7,500 difference on an annual basis. That's going to save you a whole bunch of money over the course of 10 years, 75,000 bucks, right? That's something I think is really important that we shouldn't sleep on when we're talking about the cost difference between Miami and here. Okay, so we covered why people are leaving Miami. We covered what St. Augustine has to offer that Miami doesn't have to offer. Now what I want to do is take a look at the housing comparison. And we're gonna keep the same metric. We're gonna look at a $1 million house here in St. Augustine. We're gonna look at a $1 million house or property in Miami. And they're going to be quite different. Now, it's really kind of hard to figure out like what is a comparable neighborhood in Miami to a comparable neighborhood here in St. Augustine because they are worlds apart. They're completely different, right? So what I'm going to do is just go off of like the name, right? And maybe this is a flawed way to look at it. I don't think it is. But we're going to take a look at Miami Beach and we're going to compare that to St. Augustine Beach just so you can see the difference of pricing, right? Once again, they're going to offer totally different lifestyles, and that's okay, right? I'm not saying that anyone's crazy for buying a Miami Beach for the prices there, for someone buying a property up here in St. Augustine because you can get so much more for your money. They're different lifestyles, and they're geared towards different people, right? So that's just something I want to cover here. But take a look at Miami Beach, and we take a look at what they have to offer here. So what I did is I put in a filter of 800 to 1.25 million. I didn't put anything else on there, so we're just going to see what $1 million gets you in Miami Beach versus what $1 million gets you in St. Augustine Beach. So two different areas, but just want to do the compare and contrast here, guys. So just for our own analysis, we're just going to take a look at homes, right? I don't want to look at anything else outside of that, condos and all that kind of stuff. Let's see if we can find a property as close to $1 million as possible. So you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, 1,627 square feet in Miami Beach. Looks honestly super cute. I like the flooring of it. It's a cute little house. And for the amenities of living in Miami Beach, I imagine this is priced pretty well. Now, I'm not sure what like flood insurance or anything looks like on this, but I know your taxes are going to be higher. That's for sure. But it looks like a cute little spot. You know, the flooring throughout, you know, is concrete with like, it almost looks like the shark coating that we do here in garages. Kitchen looks nice, like a beachy little kitchen. Great little master bathroom. This person clearly lived by themselves. Nice little porch area. Nothing that's like throwing me off here. I mean, this is a great house. I think this is amazing, right? This is a great little house. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what the difference of. So we got 1,627 square feet, $1 million. Let's take a look at St. Augustine Beach. Once again, I'm going to just do homes. Okay, so this is $1 million on St. Augustine Beach, as close as we could get to $1 million, right? So the price difference is there, but not by much. So this is what $1 million house is going to look like in St. Augustine Beach. You get a pool, which is nice. You're more than likely in flood zone X, so I don't think you're going to have a flood insurance here. I'd have to double check that, but we can go across that. But you're getting a pool. You're also getting a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with 2,800 square feet, so roughly 1,200 more square feet than what you get in Miami. Also getting a pool is pretty sweet. I would say the condition is about the same, right? The condition of this home is about the same. There's going to be some upgrades that you want to do if you want to modernize it. But in general, this house is bigger. I'd say this house is a little nicer just based on the flooring alone. Flooring is expensive, guys. I don't know if you know that, but flooring is very expensive. You obviously have a lot more to renovate here if you wanted to, so that'll cost you a little bit of money. But once again, that's probably much cheaper here than it is in Northeast or in South Florida. So yeah, you get a great, I mean, this is a massive house. Nice little porch on the secondary floor. That's great. Overlooks your pool, little canopy of trees. Nice lanai, outdoor shower to wash off from the beach. Great little sunset view. Yeah, I mean, this is hard to beat here, guys. You know, when you're comparing apples and oranges here, you're getting double the space almost. You're getting a pool, and you're getting a much bigger property in general. So just so we can see that, like, I'm not a crazy person here. New construction house. This is pretty awesome. This is 1.25 million, so a little bit more expensive. But you can see this is a new build house, 4 beds, 4 baths, 2,400 square feet. That's awesome. Got everything you need in this house. Not built yet. These are renderings of it, so it's just showing you where it can go. Oh, maybe that's what it looks like. That'd be cool. So looks like they got hardy board siding on there. Beautiful kitchen. Now, white and gray is starting to go out of style, but it's still really great. This is the oddest thing. Oh my gosh, look at this. You got two, I was like, what's going on here? You got two sinks. You got one right here, so a farm sink over here, and maybe this is like a little bar sink. You know, that's kind of cool. Initially, I was like, if that was the only sink in this massive kitchen, there was going to be a problem. But great little house, right? So you don't get a pool in this one, but everything's brand new construction. All the appliances have warranty. The builder has a warranty for the home as well. Big lanai, TV built into the fireplace here. Much different. So I think that's something that, you know, especially when you're comparing, you know, I talked about taxes and we looked at like, okay, $1 million there, $1 million here. It's going to be about, in St. Augustine Beach, like I said, the difference between St. Augustine Beach and Miami is going to be about a $5,000 difference in your taxes. But if you're looking at the house, and just the house in general of what you get for what you're paying for, you get a much bigger house, a much bigger property, potentially a pool within our area, still within St. Augustine Beach. And that's one of the higher tax millage rate taxes in our area. So you can find just outside of St. Augustine Beach, you can find it for 1.3%. So your taxes could be even lower. You could also find a different value of property outside of St. Augustine Beach, because that's one of the more attractive areas to live in our St. Johns County, St. Augustine area. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is address some concerns that you may have when leaving South Florida. Miami could be your home. South Florida, Broward County, Palm Beach County, this could be like where you grew up. This could be where you feel most at home. So no one can change that, right? That is 100% the truth. The one thing that I think most people, that you can't change in our area, right, is the relationships, the friendships, the family that you have within the area. That's something to really consider before you move, because I've helped people move to this area and then they move back, right, within a couple of years because they miss their friends, they miss their family. And my wife, for example, my wife is a Jersey girl. She went to Rutgers, lived in Jersey her whole life, North Jersey, Bergen County, and she moved to Florida here, right, with me, because she loves me. But she still finds herself missing her friends. She finds that like life is passing her by because her friends are up north. They're having babies. They're starting their families. And that time of life is really coming on for us pretty hard. So for me, I can live anywhere. I can live in a box in the corner. Doesn't matter for me. Whatever she's happy with, I'm happy with. So that's something that's really become like a point of contention for us, because I love living here. I have my grandma here, I have my sister here. So we're closer to my family, which we moved here by necessity because my grandfather passed. So I wanted to be closer to my grandma. But we're also at the point now where we're having a baby ourselves, right? Our life is changing. Our family is changing. So we can't replicate and duplicate these relationships that we have from the Northeast here, right? It's just much more difficult. So keep that in consideration when you're thinking about this move, right? I know there's a whole bunch of reasons to move, many of which I covered here, but those things you cannot change. So that's the biggest one, right? Now, let's talk about the lifestyle. Now, you're either, you love the metropolitan area, you love the lifestyle living there, all your options that you have between nightlife and dining and all that kind of stuff, or you're over it. And really, like, are you gonna miss that here in Northeastern Florida? Well, I can tell you for sure that we don't have really like a nightlife, right? There's no place to go dancing past like 9 o'clock, right? Maybe there's 1 or 2 bars that you'll have some, you know, cover band playing, you'll have people going wild, drinking a good bit, but there's no like clubs or anything like that. It's just gonna be a much slower pace of life down here. That's not something that we have. But if you're looking for pretty much anything else outside of that, you know, we have really great restaurants, great dining here in our area, and it's growing. It's growing at a very fast pace. We have great golf here in our area, a whole bunch of country clubs that you can be a part of. Boating in our area, we have the intercoastal here as well. So you're still gonna have access to, you know, whether you wanna go intercoastal, you wanna hang out in the boat there, you wanna go do some fishing there, or if you wanna go out deep sea fishing, you can still do that here. The next thing you might be considering is like, is there enough to do here in St. Augustine? And in my opinion, I think it's like the perfect medium, right? It's a small town with a lot of like the metropolitan feel of like things to do. There's something to do every day. There's live music every day. There's festivals going on, whether it's an art festival, music festival, film festival. They have a ton of stuff to do here. And they also have a ton of tourist attractions, right? So if you want to get on some jet skis, you hop on some jet skis. You want to go down the alligator farm, you want to feed some alligators, you want to sit on an alligator, You can do that here, right? I'm sure you can do that in South Florida, but you can do it here as well. There's literally something to do every day of the week throughout living here in St. Augustine. They actually started a new thing, which I want to go to, which is the Florida Man Games, where it's like last year they had like an obstacle course where they actually hired police officers, real police officers, to chase someone. And I think they greased him up too. Little things like that. They have music festivals, right? They have the Sing Out Loud Festival, which is in a way, it was a result to kind of spark locals to come out downtown after the summer, whereas our peak tourist season. So they had the Sing Out Loud Festival, and that's now turned into like, okay, everything is free essentially during that. So they have a lot of music and art that's free during that time. But they also have a weekend where they have a music festival where they get larger bands to come in here. So last year they had Eric Church and Noah Kahan come. The year before that, they had the Black Keys and Mumford & Sons who headlined that. And they had a whole bunch of other bands as well. But they have some big headliners coming just to that music festival, aside from what we have at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. So between history, between food, between entertainment, between the beaches, the outdoor lifestyle that you have to offer here, you're not going to miss much outside of like the nightlife of Miami. And another concern you might have about moving from South Florida to northeastern Florida is going to be the weather. Now, we already talked about hurricanes, right? Here you're going to be much, much safer, statistically speaking, than you would be in South Florida. It's just a fact, right? But the weather here, in my opinion, is actually much nicer. Now, I prefer the heat. I'm from New York, lived in Brooklyn, lived in Pennsylvania, lived in New Jersey. I know what the cold is. I know what snow is. I know what 6 months of your life staying indoors is like. Here in northeastern Florida, there's pretty much only 2 months where you stay indoors, which is during the summer, right? Which is July and August. It's the hottest part of the year. You don't really want to go out too much because you walk out, you start sweating immediately, you're beaten up. But that's year-round life in South Florida, right? It's always tropical. It's always hot in South Florida. When you get to winter here in northeastern Florida, we have perfect weather. Now, of course, we will get some cold days, right? This past year, we've had December was like the coldest month on record for like 40 years, which is completely rare. But we had a couple of days where it was like at night, it was getting down to 30 degrees, right? And that's not cool. Don't like that. But that is few and far between. It's only a couple of days out of the year. Otherwise, your days are like today where it's beautiful, it's sunny, it's 75 and sunny out, and it's amazing, right? This is like the prime time of the year to go out to downtown, to go out on the boat, do whatever you want to do because the weather is literally perfect. So that's one difference between northeastern Florida and South Florida is when our winter comes around, our summers are comparable, right? It's hot there, it's hot here. Really the difference between 95 and 98 degrees when you're sweating, not really that big of a difference. But when you get into the winter months, we do actually get a little bit of a chill in the air. You can pull out a sweater, right? And that's either going to be for you or it's not, right? So that's one of the major differences here. And guys, that is it. I wanted to give you a general video of why people are moving from South Florida to northeastern Florida. And if you learned something, you gained some knowledge on what's happening here in northeastern Florida, do me a solid and tap that subscribe button below. Like the video, comment if you have any questions. And if you are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on buying, selling, or investing in real estate. So until next time, guys, have a good one.